we welcome our next panelist, Honorable Madalisto Wema, the Minister of Education, the Republic of Malawi. Minister Wema will be joined by the Honorable Nakuchima Wafula, the Cabinet Secretary for Health, the Republic of Kenya. Is he with us? No? Okay. Just a little bit of housekeeping here. And finally, by the Honorable Mrs. Rosata Rava Vita Fika, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Republic of Madagascar.
Oh, yes, thank you.
One of the things I like about this panel is that it's extremely diverse, and it proves once again that the issue of malnutrition and tackling stunting is a multi-sectoral, multifaceted one. So I'm going to start in the order that you appeared on the platform and in reverse, but let me start with the Honorable Mrs. Rosata Rava Vita Fika concerning Madagascar. Honorable Minister, Madagascar was hit with not one, but two cyclones in 2023 that resulted in more than 1.5 million people experiencing food insecurity due to agriculture and infrastructural damage. That was just last year. So how is Madagascar advancing nutrition and managing the aftermath of that crisis?
Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, je tiens tout d'abord à vous remercier pour l'invitation qui a été faite, présenter les excuses de son Excellence, Monsieur le Président Andry Rajoelina, qui n'a pas pu venir à cet événement. Effectivement, Madagascar connaît, particulièrement dans le sud de la Grande Île, divers épisodes de famine et de sécheresse. La situation dans le grand sud de Madagascar fait que malheureusement notre grande île est connue pour la malnutrition qui y règne. Tout d'abord, j'aimerais aussi présenter quelques réalités qui font que la situation reste difficile, mais en tout cas, plusieurs efforts ont été menés par le gouvernement, à commencer par la mise en place de projets tels que le titre vert. C'est un projet qui consiste à allouer une parcelle de terre à des jeunes porteurs de projets pour qu'ils puissent développer différents projets d'entrepreneuriat agricole. Ensuite, le président de la République a aussi, en mai 2021, établi une lettre de politique pour la souveraineté alimentaire à Madagascar. Et c'est cette feuille de route qui guide les actions du gouvernement en ce qui concerne la lutte contre la malnutrition. Nous avons aussi franchi un cap très significatif, d'abord parce qu'il y a eu la mise en place de l'usine Nutri-Sud qui contribue en quelque sorte à relever la situation. L'usine Nutri-Sud, c'est une usine qui produit des compléments alimentaires. Grâce à la mise en place de cette usine, on a constaté une hausse de 30% du taux de scolarisation des enfants qui se trouvent dans la région en question. Donc il y a eu un certain nombre d'actions très concrètes de la part, d'abord grâce au leadership de son Excellence, Monsieur le Président de la République, et de son épouse, Madame la Première Dame Mial Rajoelina, mais il y a aussi derrière tout un travail et une feuille de route qui a été établie. Je ne saurais rester sans préciser que ces différentes actions sont encadrées à travers une politique nationale pour lutter contre la malnutrition, et ceci à travers un certain nombre d'actions qui permettront aussi d'anticiper les différentes phases qui seront encore difficiles. Vous savez, mesdames et messieurs, Madagascar est un pays qui est extrêmement vulnérable aux aléas du changement climatique. nous avons chaque année plusieurs cyclones qui touchent le pays, des épisodes de sécheresse, des inondations, et donc différents facteurs qui viennent aggraver la situation qui est déjà celle qu'on connaît dans le sud de Madagascar. Nous remercions en particulièrement l'engagement du docteur Akinwumi Adesina, qui est venu plusieurs fois à Madagascar auprès des populations vulnérables, qui a constaté par lui-même qu'il y a beaucoup d'espoir par rapport aux enfants à Madagascar, qui peuvent aller très loin dans les études et qu'il faut absolument soutenir. Donc, je ne pourrais pas tout citer comme action ou cadre d'action par rapport au gouvernement et les efforts entrepris par le gouvernement. En tout cas, je peux m'exprimer ici en disant que Son Excellence, Monsieur le Président de la République, est extrêmement engagé. Et c'est pour cela, je pense qu'il a le mérite d'avoir été nommé 2 fois champion de la nutrition en Afrique. Merci.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister Rasata Ravavita Fika, for that update on what's happening and the interventions that you're providing in Madagascar. My next question will be to the Honorable Minister from Malawi. Minister Wirima, last year, Malawi experienced severe flooding, just like Madagascar, and experienced severe devastation, particularly in the southern parts of the country. But it's made a very fast recovery since then. What are some of the things that you had to do, put in place, to ensure that you were able to overcome some of the devastation since then? And as you look at that, what's the huge impact on hunger that has been highlighted by the severe weather patterns that we're experiencing across the continent?
Thank you very much, moderator. Let me stand on all protocols observed. Malawi, just like most African countries, indeed, has not been spared from devastating of all sorts of weather-related disasters. Of late, we had Cyclone Freddy, which did erode most of our gains, especially in education. I'm now speaking as Minister of Education, also just linking this issue of nutrition to education, which is the theme of the African Union this year. So indeed, it has eroded most of the gains that we have made in education, but also in nutrition. You may say, moderator, that we have recovered quick enough. I, for one, do not think that we have recovered quick enough, but thanks to the visionary leadership of our state president, Dr. Lazarus Martha Chakwera, through which we are making progress in recovery. To say the truth, moderator, most of the progress we've made in recovery is to do with a lot of help that we've gotten through our partners, our cooperating partners. We did have a serious call for help because it was indeed devastating. For us to be able to recover from the gains that we had, we need a lot of money, sums of over 600 million US dollars in education alone. So we have infrastructure such as classroom blocks, wash facilities that have been washed off. But just to answer your question once again, I think the progress that we have made, although I do not think it's fast enough, mostly is to do with the call for help that we want. You may also wish to know, as I did highlight yesterday when we had the Executive Council meeting, that amongst the assistance that Malawi did receive, the Council also rendered help to us. But also, let me be quick to say that before this disaster that we had, I'm making now reference more to the Cyclone Freddy, as it was the most devastating, the presidency had already put in mechanisms in place to make sure that the country is food secure. So there's a mega drive now, a big drive of mega farms, knowing that if the country is going to make meaningful progress in food security, we need to scale up on agriculture. So now we've gone back to mega farms. We're doing mega farms in banana, we're doing mega farms in wheat, we're doing mega farms in peanuts, we're doing mega farms in maize, in almost everything. And just also to be quick to say that prior to us attaining the multi-party democracy, I would say the democracy, I think we were doing very well in agriculture. But somehow, somewhere along the way, I think things kind of fell off. But we are fortunate enough as a country that with the visionary leadership of our president, we are going back to basics. We are going back to where we were. And I do believe that I think soon enough, with the help of cooperating partners, but also with the leadership that we have, we are going to make the meaningful progress in food security that we so desire. I submit. Thank you.
Honorable Madalisto Wirima, thank you very much for that update. And you certainly have a visionary and very driven president, at least the little that I've seen on television. I get a sense that that is the case. So I wish you all the very best with what you continue to do. I'm going to come to Madagascar, and just like Malawi, as I said, there have been significant challenges again that are weather-related. But in spite of that, Honorable Namashula, you've also had tremendous success in combating stunting. It is a big problem, it's a challenge, but you haven't been inhibited by those challenges. You're making huge progress. Can you tell us what some of the primary factors are that is driving this government effort and initiative?
Muito obrigada. Moçambique é, por ironia do destino, o caminho de ciclones. Todos os ciclones passam pelo nosso país. Mas temos superado porque temos apoio e solidariedade não só da União Africana, mas também de todos os povos. Devido à nossa posição geográfica, todos os anos nós temos tido ciclones. Tivemos o ciclone Gombe, ciclone Idai, ciclone Fred. Aqui a minha colega de Malawi falou, ciclone Fred primeiro bateu Moçambique, entrou no Malawi, depois voltou de novo para Moçambique. E aprendemos a criar a resiliência. Mas essa resiliência também criamos por causa do apoio de todos os nossos vizinhos da União Africana. Por isso, queríamos manifestar aqui o nosso agradecimento, não só aos nossos países vizinhos da região, mas também de toda a União Africana. Eu mando saudações do nosso presidente, Felipe Jacinto Nyusi, que neste momento não está aqui presente, mas mandatou-nos para virmos transmitir a experiência de Moçambique. Como é que Moçambique supera? Nós criamos em 2017 o Conselho Nacional Conselho Nacional de Segurança Alimentar e Nutricional, que faz a monitoria periodicamente, 3 vezes por ano, como é que nós estamos em termos de segurança nutricional. Nós temos a época chuvosa que inicia em outubro e tem o seu pico em janeiro. Então, nesse período de dezembro a janeiro até março, há uma equipe que faz a monitoria sobre se temos garantias de alimentos ou não. Depois tem a segunda fase, que é aquela fase onde verificamos se as áreas que foram afetadas pelas cheias conseguiram superar a crise hídrica e que já conseguem produzir os alimentos. E temos também a terceira fase, que é aquela em que monitoramos se efetivamente, na época produtiva, as populações conseguiram produzir ou não. E o Conselho Nacional de Segurança Alimentar e Nutricional faz essas avaliações, publicita, mostra os aspectos críticos, os locais críticos, e aí o governo dá mais atenção àquelas províncias, àqueles locais com mais dificuldades em termos alimentares. O outro aspecto não menos importante é que o Conselho Nacional da Segurança Alimentar e Nutricional tem o seu desdobramento a nível das províncias, a nível dos distritos e também até ao nível das comunidades, para monitorar como é que as nossas comunidades conseguem superar, produzir e garantir os alimentos. E esse engajamento é comum desde o nível central, liderado pelo nosso presidente, e também até o nível local, onde nós temos os administradores distritais. Também temos programas, esses programas também liderados pela nossa mãe, a nossa primeira-dama, que também tem incidência em mulheres, porque no nosso país nós temos uma taxa de mulheres maior que de homens. Então, o empoderamento maior para a produção de alimentos, de garantir que as mulheres estejam saudáveis, também é um desafio. Então, há estes programas de empoderamento das nossas mulheres, para que as mulheres efetivamente possam liderar o processo de garantia da segurança alimentar. E também temos nos nossos postos de saúde programas de educação de mulheres, porque o nosso país é muito produtivo, que ensina as mulheres como combinar os alimentos que têm em casa para garantir que as suas crianças sejam nutridas. A nível das nossas escolas, também temos programas de alimentação escolar, principalmente naquelas zonas onde se nota que temos maior número, principalmente nas zonas rurais, das províncias de Nampula, da província da Zambésia e da província de Cabo Delgado. Então, temos esses programas de alimentação escolar para garantir que os nossos meninos com idade até 5 anos possam ter uma alimentação quente ou papas quentes, bem nutridas, que ajudem a que eles possam ter melhor aprendizagem. Então, esta é a nossa experiência de uma organização estrutural que permite fazermos o acompanhamento devido à vulnerabilidade que o nosso país tem. Muito obrigada.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. The 3 M's of Madagascar, Malawi, as well as Mozambique, facing similar problems of climate change. You are in the eye of the storm, and it's encouraging to hear the progress that you're making in combating and mediating the devastating impacts that we have from these climate-induced devastation. I'm actually quite grateful. This is the very first time, and I must admit, it's the very first time that I've moderated a panel that has more women than men. And I think that's a very positive development. Yeah. And that's why I deliberately left Dr. Mohammed Ali Patel last, not because I wasn't going to come to you, but I wanted to give the women the opportunity to speak first. Now, Nigeria, yes, please give our honorable ministers a round of applause. Nigeria has not necessarily, it has its own climate challenges that it's dealing with, probably not as much as the other countries that we have mentioned. You are Nigeria, you're the newest member of the Presidential Dialogue Group, and I say congratulations to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and to Nigeria. But my question to you concerns the critical impact that your government intends to have with the initiatives that you're putting in place, particularly over the next 1 year to prioritize nutrition, especially in northern Nigeria. Yes, it's a national issue, but in northern Nigeria, it's a critical issue. What are some of the initiatives that you're putting in place, and how can these be sustained at an institutional and policy level so that it's not all talk, but there's action on the ground? Fortunately, you have a track record of delivery, but I'm glad to hear from you today what it is that the Nigerian government is doing in this regard. Professor Pate, the last, but certainly not the least. Over to you.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Victor. Excellencies, heads of states, President Adesina, honorable ministers, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I bring warm greetings of His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to this august occasion. He had wanted to be here, but he asked me to come and speak about the issue of nutrition and stunting, which is very much close to his heart, and what his administration is trying to do as part of the renewed hope agenda of his administration. Before I share a response in terms of what we're trying to do in Nigeria concretely, I'd like to just set the context a little bit. I think our continent is challenged. It's challenged in the post-pandemic era, whereby many of our governments are facing post-pandemic adjustments in terms of fiscal environment. Poverty has exacerbated, partly because of the pandemic, but we know that there have been exacerbation of poverty. Climate change, reducing productivity in our agricultural systems, undeveloped agricultural value chains, and President Adesina, I would like to call you out for incredible leadership over the last several years on the continent on this agenda. But we still have a long way to go, not only in terms of the agricultural value chains, but also in terms of the food systems, which are largely underdeveloped with lots of wastage, in addition to the practice of how we feed our children and our health systems. So this is a very complex environment within which we are operating. For the administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, he puts the health, human capital, and the well-being of the Nigerian citizen at the center. Yes, growth is important, but the people matter. And that's why he created the Ministry of Health and Social Welfare and a coordinating role, because it's an inherently multi-stakeholder, multi-sectoral effort that is needed, a whole of government, whole of society approach to address these issues and harnessing the human capital so that as we grow, the prosperity that we envision should be inclusive and that our growth is not stunted, as President Adesina also mentioned. And to do that across government and with other actors, private sector, civil society, in a federal system, which is complicated by itself. So within that context, one of the first things that he did was direct the Vice President to set up a Food and Nutrition Council, which is comprising of course, the Vice President as the chair, but ministers of national planning, myself as the coordinating Minister of Health and Social Welfare, Ministry of Education, Water, Agriculture, to coordinate at the federal level alongside our development partners, multilateral financial partners, and other development partners in the United Nations system, and also to engage the subnational actors, because we're a fiscally decentralized system, so that the state governments are also engaged, and there are several actors in the civil society space to be able to really have an overarching multi-sectoral perspective how we address these issues. Of course, there is the acute hunger. Not acceptable on our continent that millions of children are dying of hunger, adults. And then the stunting. Not acceptable that just about 40% of our children on the continent are stunted. So the Africa Vision 2063, I think, will be challenged unless we address this stunting that is very widespread on our continent. But in the context of Nigeria, with our large population, we have to bend the curve. And this council is, in a way, an effort for federal government to lead and to draw those investments from our government. We mandated all ministries to have a nutrition departments, not only health ministries, but also the state governments also have similar focus, because part of the issue is nutrition doesn't really have a natural home. Is it in agriculture? Is it in education? Is it in health? Is it in water? And so to have a dedicated platform institutionally to anchor this agenda and to have a framework for coordination, I think is one way to address that, to ensure there is financing made available domestically to complement whatever it is our external partners respectfully contribute in terms of trying to address this challenge. It's a long haul, both for acute malnutrition, but also in the context of the stunting issue, which is more medium, longer term. In health, what we're doing is expanding basic primary health care to deliver immunization, because measles, for instance, contributes to stunting. Frequent ailments of children, diarrheal diseases that can be addressed through the primary healthcare system. Saving the lives of mothers, as was said. Breastfeeding when children are born. This is in the remedy of health. Maternal anemia. Things that can be done. If you improve maternal anemia, you reduce child mortality. So maternal anemia is a health intervention that addresses the nutritional well-being of the child in gestation, but also in the early childhood. Those are in the realm of health. Now, education is equally important, and water and sanitation important. Our agricultural ministry was renamed, and I think President Adesina started it many years ago when he was minister, but President Hu brought that back as Minister of Agriculture and Food Security. And that includes thinking about the local cuisines that we have, the dietary diversity, to address the acute issues, but also the medium, longer term. In the short term, the President has been very deliberate, releasing grains from our reserves to ensure that we mitigate the difficult circumstances of many of our populations in the rural areas, in the urban areas. This is not limited to Nigeria. This is an African issue. Now, on this issue, if we look back again to the COVID era, where we saw trillions of dollars being used as stimulus in the context of a global crisis. Now we have hunger and stunting in many countries in Africa. The resources in terms of the global community, I think, are there. On climate change and its impact on food systems, we know that, in fact, it has played a major role. So there are resources, and much of this climate change that we're experiencing did not come from Africa. So I think we also need boldness and commitment, similar to what President Adesina has shown as the African Development Bank, to ensure that we invest not only in the acute phase, but also to put in place multi-sectoral interventions, how we can get out of the stunting issue over time. Finally, monitoring and accountability. The President is very keen that each one of us as his ministers has a compact that has measurable targets and periodic appraisal. So every day I scratch my head, how do we deliver all of these efforts? And I know that my colleagues are all trying to deliver, because at the end of the day, that's the key to our job security. Without accountability, without a way of measuring, without the way of harnessing good evidence to guide our interventions, we'll be spinning our wheels for a very long time. So I really think that this dialogue is an important element in the stage on the continent. At the end of the day, it's leaders on the continent that will address this. We thank the partners that are external to the continent, and we know that Africa is a global Africa that we're talking about. But at the same time, leaders on the continent have to internalize the centrality of nutrition, of human capital in the development of the continent. And that's what we're trying to do, and the President is very committed to that, and he wanted me to come and share that alongside many of my colleagues who are here on the panel. Over to you. Thank you.
Minister Ali Pate, thank you very much for giving us a very quick tour de force of what it is that the federal government of Nigeria, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration, and yourself and your colleagues are doing. Very well done to you, and thanks to you and your fellow ministers on the platform for the excellent interventions that you're providing, but more importantly, for giving us hope moving forward. So, Ministers Mohamed Ali Pate, Camelia Rita Namashula Madalisto Wirima, and Minister Rasata Rafa Rava Vitafika thank you so much for joining us and providing us with invaluable insights of what it is that's taking place in your respective countries. Ladies and gentlemen, please give our distinguished panel a warm round of applause. Thank you very much for joining us.